Hey guys, how's it going? Kripp here. So as you know, it's been one full year of Tavern Brawl, and Tavern Brawl's been one of the most awesome things ever added to Hearthstone. It came at a time where, for the first time ever, I think ranked players, and including myself, not really much of a ranked player, but I do enjoy the dabble a little bit, are getting really tired of the format. It was when I was suggesting to the devs that they really need to change cards, buff bad cards, just do something to continuously spice up the meta, to continuously deliver on a new experience all the time. And, little did I know they were working on that exact format. They were working on the Tavern Brawl system. Came out just a few weeks later, and, it's been a pretty great year of this new format. One thing I want to highlight in this video, among just the general stuff of Tavern Brawl and what we've all experienced, is the statistics by BudoBoy07. He is one of the most tenacious statistics gatherers on Reddit, and every single week at the end of a Tavern Brawl, he gets people's opinion, at least the people that visit Reddit, their opinion of Tavern Brawl. And obviously this opinion is a little bit skewed because people who do visit Reddit, who do kind of, look into all little corners in the internet for Hearthstone content, are usually the ones that play it more seriously. Generally, I would think would have a bigger collection, and as a result, it's a little bit of a biased poll, but it has some very interesting results, and he's been doing this every single week since Tavern Brawl has come out. So he's released in a post that I've linked below all the statistics gathered up from this past year, so we can see what Tavern Brawls were the most interesting. And this is a very interesting piece of information because, on one hand, it kind of tells you what people want, and Blizzard is generally going to have similar information and act upon that. So you can expect the things that have positive rating to be more frequent in the future. But, there's a little bit of a twist to that. I have talked to the Blizzard devs, and it seems there's a little bit of a different angle that, because of the bias involved in these results, doesn't really show in these stats. But it's going to be interesting. We'll talk about that in a second. I want to give you guys my own opinion too, but I think it's good to go through the stats here because it'll remind us all what went down in the last year of Tavern Brawls. So this is the first block of stats that she showed from the summary of the last year here, and you can see the best performing Tavern Brawls and the worst performing Tavern Brawls. So the one at the top is the Great Summoner Competition. We had a few repeats, and the repeats didn't do that well, largely because in those first few days of this Tavern Brawl, where if you play a spell, you get a minion with that same mana cost, it took people a few days to kind of figure out what works, what doesn't, and just generally how to maneuver around this Tavern Brawl. When the repeat came in, it didn't really change anything because people already knew what to play, so it was like the first release, day 1 was different than day 2 was different than 3, then 4, then 5 of the Tavern Brawl. But then when it was re-released, it was just day 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. It was just the same stuff all over again. Now, it was still pretty good. I love Tavern Brawl, even though it's a repeat almost every single week. But this is kind of why there's a lot of excitement sometimes for the same brawl that at a different time gets released and is very lackluster. Number 2 is the one we had just experienced, where you pick 2 cards, and those 2 cards are multiplied times 15, and that basically becomes your 30-card deck. And this Tavern Brawl was loved by a lot of people. I noticed it because I played this Tavern Brawl on day 4, and I would not play the same people back-to-back, whereas usually I would often play people back-to-back on the later days of a Tavern Brawl because there wouldn't be that many people queuing up. Well, no, people really love that. They really play that, and it's one of those build your own deck Tavern Brawls that doesn't require you to have too many cards. And that combination is a very powerful one because generally people who aren't represented very well in these statistics are people who don't play Hearthstone that much. They have a few cards, and they really like the Tavern Brawls that have a low investment, a low pay-to-win factor, or no pay-to-win factor. So this one is a great combo, and it's no surprise that it came almost number 1. Then we have Unite against Mechazod. This is the first time it was released. Again, the first time it was released, it was like the new thing. It was blowing people. It blew my mind. I'm like, whoa! It's so crazy to play a cooperative like kind of like a campaign in Hearthstone with another player on your side. This is crazy, right? So that like really hit me, how amazing, how many more options and possibilities can happen within the game. It just kind of exploded that like realm of possibilities that was Tavern Brawl. So that's really why it blew me away. I think that's probably my favorite one. But on the other hand, that like wow factor wasn't really there when they re-released it the next 2 times. So you kind of get where I'm getting at. And after that, it kind of trails off a little bit, and there's a lot of brawls that are quite well liked. As far as the ones that are not well liked, the worst ones is the second release of Web Spinners. The second worst one is the third release of Web Spinners. That Tavern Brawl does change, because there are different beasts being released in each expansion, but it doesn't change much. The gameplay style is roughly the same, and the way that you play through the games is kind of the same as well. Its raining mana was particularly bad, and I kind of understand that, because you can't really compensate by curving out in the early game. So, if you need 1 mana cards because you want to play something on turn 1, and you need 3 mana cards because you want to play something on turn 2 where you go to 3 mana, but that's a little bit of an issue because you can't compensate by having, if you have like 1, 2, 3, and 4 on turn 4, if you don't have any 4 drops, you can play like a 3 and a 1. But in an all odd number or all even number curve, you can't really do that. You can't really adjust very well. So on turn 3, you can either play a 3 drop or a 1 drop. You can't play like a 2 and a 1. You can't. You just have to get really lucky in your opening hand, and that's already a pretty frustrating game to curve out perfectly, as you probably know if you've played Arena. And Blingtron's Brawl was pretty bad, but I would say that range is pretty good. It's nothing close to the disasters that are the bottom 3. So that's pretty interesting. We get a bit of a scope on what people who visit Reddit like to play in Tavern Brawl, and I would largely agree those were some of the best ones. Now, the next one here has every single Tavern Brawl in chronological order, and its average rating, again, by Reddit. So we can see that, actually, the first few brawls got a ton of votes. The first few brawls are actually pretty highly rated overall, but I would say that just because it was like a new thing, people were really interested, people voted, people just played it as much as they can. But I would argue that the first Tavern Brawl were generally quite crappy. I was not pleased with like the first 3. I remember them being particularly bad. And after that, things starting to get a little bit better, and I'd say around Brawl like 15 or 20, I believe Blizzard said that they hired someone to do full-time Tavern Brawls. I think that's when things really started to kick off. And we kind of see that in the stats, in the second half of the graph, which represents, the second part of the year, you can see that the scores are generally quite good. The overall quality of Tavern Brawls, I believe right now, is excellent. And, this is within that frame of reference where I think the first 3 were crap. So, yeah, it's come a long way. It doesn't really show in the stats that much because when it comes to stats, there's a reasonable expectation from people. I think Tavern Brawl is constantly getting a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better, but at the same time, people expect more and more out of it. Now, the most interesting thing that was pointed out by one of the comments on the Reddit thread about this was that the Web Spinner Brawls were easily the worst ones, but the one right after were the top 3 brawls ever, which kind of leads into the point that I was making. If the expectations kind of lead into the results. So if you give people Web Spinner Brawl and like, man, this thing sucks. These are the same people that typically, want to play Tavern Brawl. They want to enjoy themselves. They want to have that crazy experience. It's not delivered. And the next week when it actually comes, even though there's probably a bit of coincidence that those have actually been some amazing brawls, but the people who do regularly play Brawl are blown away by these because their expectations are dropped from the previous week. So it's a very interesting process, it's a very interesting play mode, and overall, at least from my opinion, I think the trend is easily quite upward, even though the stats don't show that. Again, I think that's because of the expectations that people have when it comes to, a thing that gets cycled in constantly week by week. In terms of the comments I've received from some of the Blizzard individuals I've talked to, just kind of over the months, over the years, they like to say a thing or two, and I think this is kind of public knowledge, but people love random cards and random deck Brawl. I've been told that like the Tavern Brawls where you just have a random deck, people go crazy for that. Now, that's kind of an interesting thing because it delivers on a different audience, right? So the people that are already very interested in Hearthstone are usually the ones who have responded to the poll stats that you've seen. But the people who are kind of, playing a little bit on the side, playing a bit casually, if you can make some Tavern Brawls that really get those people engaged in the game, that's kind of like you're attracting a new audience to the game. So basically what I'm saying is, moving forward, I think we're going to see a lot of the few brawls that have been very successful, ones that are similar to those. Maybe we'll see like a 3-card deck brawl, something like that. That's possible. But at the same time, I think we're going to see a lot of these like random deck or semi-random deck brawls because Blizzard really needs to, and they are appealing to kind of the audience that is more of a casual level. But at the end of the day, as coming from someone who's played Tavern Brawl every single week, and you can check my video record, there's a Tavern Brawl with a number for every number, all the way up to 53 now. I think it's all a great system. My main criticism for the systems are I still don't understand why we have like a break. Yeah, you play Tavern Brawl for like 5 days and then you don't have Tavern Brawl for 2 days. I don't get that. Is the technology not there? Would it be too confusing? I don't know. And the other thing that really puzzles me is that you need to have one particular character to level 20 to actually play Tavern Brawl. When Tavern Brawl was first launched, they had the incentive that for the first win of Tavern Brawl each week, you'd get 1 pack. And they said that would be temporary, but it ended up being, well, more than temporary. Let's just say they might remove it, I guess, but it's been a year and they haven't changed that system. And with that pack, these small, like, little bit of reward there, a little bit of cards, a little bit of dust here, a little bit of gold there, these things really matter for new players. But when someone new is playing the game, they're going to want to diversify. They want to explore a lot of the different classes, a lot of the different options in the game. And because you can't play Tavern Brawl until you get 1 class to 20, and 20 is a lot, okay? It takes like 8 to 10 hours of playing to actually get a class to 20. That's not a small amount. I think the way that Tavern Brawl fails new players, and obviously Blizzard is trying to really pay attention to what new players want by choosing some of these themes for Tavern Brawls, I think it's really failing them by the fact that people who are actually very new to the game are kind of walled off because of how they naturally explore the game. People who pick up Hearthstone for the first time, they're going to want to play Mage, then they're going to play a different class, they're going to lose to a different class, like, wow, I want to try that combo, they're going to try that combo, they're going to try this, they're going to try that. I think the typical new player experience probably doesn't hit a level 20 character until most of them are in the teens already. So because of that, I think they're not seeing the full adventure, the full variety, the full awesomeness that is Hearthstone until a later stage that I think is just not too fair. But overall, Tavern Brawls has been a blast, and I'm glad that Blizzard came up with a mode and that is continuously innovating new, and in my opinion at least, much better ways to entertain the Tavern Brawl audience. So props to Blizzard. I hope you guys have kept up with my videos and my adventures as well. And yeah, in the end, it's all good stuff. Hope you guys enjoyed my review, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.